Welcome to our channel. We're together with another true story from real life. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and leave a comment. Now, let's get into the story. Well, hello everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Noah. I'm 65 years old, a retired teacher. These events that can happen to anyone have also happened to me. Actually, I wasn't someone who believed in these jinn and fairy tales until I experienced it myself. If someone had told me about it, I would have surely laughed it off. But living through it is a whole different story. I served in most parts of Turkey throughout my career, dedicating my life to education. I worked in villages and small towns, in difficult times and under harsh conditions. When I say difficult times, I mean it because everything is so easy now. We who taught in times when books, notebooks, and pens were scarce, when technology was non-existent, traveled through villages of Anatolia, witnessing one common thing: poverty. A classroom teacher, especially one serving in a village, had to be knowledgeable in every aspect because those who had received education, they looked up to us for guidance in every matter. If a cow got sick, they'd come to us. If a seed they planted started to sprout, they'd come to us. If a child fell ill, they'd come to us. They saw us as the solution to all their problems. Therefore, as I served, I educated myself in many areas. We were not just educators who taught in school and taught children how to read and write. We were people who answered questions on all subjects, of all ages. You can imagine that having traveled to so many places, I've accumulated many stories. If I were to narrate my experiences, it would sound like a novel. If time allows, I really wish to do that. Without boring you further, let's start with my main story. It was the third village I was posted in. I debated a lot whether to disclose the name of the village or not, but I decided it would be more appropriate to keep it undisclosed. When I went to the village, I had a fair idea of what to expect, but I couldn't have predicted this extent of deprivation. Poverty was everywhere. I wasn't expecting a luxurious residence, but I certainly didn't expect such a dilapidated one. Some villagers volunteered to help with the repairs, and together we made it habitable. Anatolian people were poor, but their hearts were rich. If they had eggs, they wouldn't hesitate to give you one. They gave me the same treatment. If someone had milk, they'd bring milk. If someone had yogurt, they'd bring yogurt. May God bless them all. However, this village was unlike the others I had been to. The people were different, more ignorant. But what set this village apart was the level of paranoia. At that time, I thought it was just ignorance. There was a building near the school, a 2-story building that used to be the school, but had fallen into disrepair and was beyond repair. So a new school was built. There were many rumors about this old school. People said there was a jinn in the school. They warned me not to pass by it at night, and if I did, they advised me to recite certain prayers. They made sure to warn me about it. Well, as an educator, I pleaded with them not to believe in such things and not to scare the children with such stories. Seeing their disbelief, I was quite surprised. I stayed in a house close to the old school. sandwiched between the old and new schools. Naturally, I had to pass by it whenever I went somewhere. There was no electricity, just gas lamps and candles. One evening, I was sitting by the window trying to make the most of the moonlight when I heard footsteps, followed by a knock on the door. When I opened it, I saw one of my students, whose name I can't recall after all this time. He was visibly scared. "What's wrong, son?" I asked. "My father is calling for you. You need to come quickly," he said. I was putting on my shoes, hoping nothing serious had happened. "My brother is very sick," he managed to say. We took the long way around the school, circling it instead of passing directly by. "It's probably nothing," I thought to myself. "Maybe his brother is just a little sick, and we're wasting time by taking this detour." Nevertheless, we reached home soon enough. His brother, whom he said was very sick, was lying in bed with his mother by his side, crying. "May he get well soon," I said as I entered. "Teacher, come in." "We're at a loss for what to do," said the man, clearly distressed. I said, "Let's call the doctor. Let's send word to the center." "No, teacher, this isn't a matter for doctors," he said. The child was burning with fever. "If this isn't a matter for doctors, then what is it? Or if it's not about being a doctor, is it about being a teacher?" He finally explained to me what they expect me to do in a situation like this one evening. "I'm listening to the child is possessed by jinn, but I'm also very angry with the man. Why don't you just stop insisting on jinn and let a doctor see him? He has a fever," I said. The child started to weaken, saying, "They've come for me. They're going to take me away." I said he might be having a seizure. We took off his clothes. His mother wiped his body with cold water, and a little later his fever had dropped. He was able to open his eyes. "Save me. They're going to kill me," he said, "or else." It's a situation I've never encountered before. I'm leaving. I couldn't convince the family to see a doctor. They've been to the doctor before, but it hasn't helped. The child sometimes loses control like this, they say. That day, when the child came to, I went home too. But my mind was still there. I'm saying how ignorant it is. The man's child is going to die. He doesn't want a doctor. He says it's a jinn possession. The sick child didn't come to school for a while. I asked his brother about the situation from the city. "The teacher will come today. He will take care of my brother," he said. As soon as school ended, I knocked on their doors. I was curious about the child. "How did it go?" I said. "They confirmed that the teacher would come today, they told me. Stay, maybe if you see it with your own eyes, you'll believe." They said. We waited for the teacher to come. When the teacher arrived, he first asked us all to leave. We waited outside the door for a while. Then we went in. Tears were streaming from the child's eyes. The teacher prayed, and we watched from the sidelines. Suddenly, the child began to struggle. The teacher held onto his arms, but couldn't stop him. He asked for our help. I held onto his legs. He was so strong, we couldn't hold him down, no matter how hard we tried. The child suddenly stood up and grabbed the teacher's throat. He was going to kill him, his father, his mother. We managed to pull the child away, then tied his hands and feet with a rope. I wouldn't have allowed this. but the child was regaining consciousness and could have killed one of us. We had to tie him up. When the crisis came, he didn't even recognize his mother and father. His gaze changed. It was a very serious situation. The teacher continued to pray, and this time the child started to make hoarse sounds, his voice getting thicker. He was saying, "Get lost, go away," to the teacher. But this wasn't the child's voice. It was suddenly so thick. It made me question what I knew. After the prayer, the child relaxed and fell asleep, and the teacher said that the jinn had possessed the child, both female. Let's not tire the child too much today. Let him rest. Tomorrow, I will bring the jinn to speak and tell them to leave the child, he said. It seemed he would stay there that night, but since it's a two-room house, I invited the teacher. "I'm the only one living in the lodge. Come stay with me," I said. I took the teacher to the lodge. On the way, he saw the old school. He passed by with prayers. "They've taken over the village completely. Be careful. Let's save this child. We have to clean them out of the village," he said. I listened. It was not just a subject to speculate about. When we got home, I set up a bed for the teacher. We would stay in the same room, so we had a chance to chat a bit. Is there really no possibility that the child is actually sick now? I asked. You saw it yourself, how much stronger he has become. We could hardly stop him. How his voice changed as we read. Is all this because of illness now? He asked. He was right, but it was very hard for him to accept. We got up early in the morning and went. The child was awake. We had breakfast first. Then the readings continued. He was going to summon the jinn that had possessed the child. But for this we need to wait until evening, he said. He read intermittently until evening. When it got dark, the real session began. They lit the gas lamp. The teacher called out to the jinn with this invitation. The gas lamp went out. The woman wanted to light it again, but the teacher stopped her. "Don't light it. They are uncomfortable with the light," he said. The jinn had arrived, as far as I could understand, shortly after. "You can light the lamp now," he said. When they lit the lamp and put it back, I saw the shadows on the wall of the room. There were two shadows passing quickly, as if the people were walking around inside the house. I believed now. I had no doubt left. The teacher was trying to make the jinn speak, so that he could understand what they wanted from the child. I was watching with curiosity, but I was also very scared. Then the child spoke, but it wasn't actually him speaking. His voice was still as thick. It seems that the thinness of women's voices is a situation unique to humans and jinn. Regardless of gender, the voice came out thick, I guess. If you were to ask me, the voice that came out was male, because the child, who had been lying down, suddenly sat up and was speaking very fast. Sometimes I could hear some Turkish words in between, but overall it was Arabic. The teacher was also responding in Arabic. The child apparently didn't know Arabic. Actually, this was another proof, but now there was no need for proof. I believed. The teacher's voice intensified as he spoke, but he had not reached a conclusion. I understood this from his size. He was distressed. They weren't convinced straight away. I had no choice but to do it, he said. Let's prepare to take him outside, he said. We went out into the garden. Luckily, there was a full moon, so it wasn't too dark. He drew a circle in the garden, a big circle, and placed a chair in the middle. He made the child sit on that chair. We tied his hands and feet again, lit a box of candles, and placed them around the chair. His mother was constantly crying. No one would want to see their child like that. Suddenly, the child started swearing, cursing all of us, especially the teacher. He was hurling death threats at us. The teacher was reciting prayers aloud as he recited. The child went mad. The child's voice returned to normal this time. He started crying out, "Mother, save me. Mother, I'm burning." His mother ran to him immediately. The teacher held her back. "Sister, wait. He's not your son," he said. The child was still crying. "Grandma, please save me, my dear. I'm burning. Let's go home," he said. Even I wanted to save him for a moment, but the teacher was more experienced than all of us. We had to follow his lead. It was clear that the jinn was doing this to escape. His mother crouched in a corner, saying, "Whatever he says, never believe it. He's not your son," she repeated. After warning all of us, the teacher continued reading. The child screamed so loudly because I thought I heard someone's voice from the village, but no one came. Sometimes he cried, begging, "Save me," and sometimes his voice became deep again, threatening us. "We'll burn him now," he said. The teacher recited the basmala as soon as he did. All the candles around the chair fell. He lit the rope tied to the child's feet. When the rope caught fire, the teacher yelled, "Put it out. They'll kill the child." I took off my jacket and ran, but I couldn't extinguish it. There was a basin of water outside. His father poured it. Thank God, without anything happening to the child. We untied the child from the ropes and brought him inside. We couldn't understand anything. Of course, how did those candles fall? Actually, they wanted to kill the child, and the teacher had trapped those two in that circle to burn them. But the jinn from the old school had come and tried to burn the child to save them. The child would have almost burned alive in front of us. It couldn't be explained or rationalized. It wouldn't have had any sides. When the other jinn intervened, the teacher didn't know what to do. "I'm going to the center tomorrow. We have a great teacher there. I'll bring him back," he said. The teacher stayed with me that night. He went to the city in the morning and came back in the evening with someone who looked like he was in his 80s. They said we had to finish this tonight. The jinn had gotten too dirty the night before. We did the same things we did the night before. According to me, it was the same, at least. But according to the teachers, it was different. This time, the jinn inside the circle wouldn't be able to get out, and other jinn from the outside wouldn't be able to get in. The child stood in front of us, tied to a chair, exhausted and tired. I felt sorry for him this time. The older teacher did most of the work. He recited the prayers he read. Finally, when it came to burning, he approached the child very closely, opened his mouth with his 2 fingers, and the child started vomiting. Black smoke came out of his mouth. It was as if when you light a stove, black smoke comes out of the chimney. It was the same in the darkness we could see. He picked up the child and brought him home. We cleaned up outside, returned everything to its previous state. The teachers were smiling. "Get well soon. May God not let it happen again," they said. However, The jinn who claim ownership of the school won't leave the villagers alone. This could happen to anyone. That's why it's necessary to deal with this separately at another time. They said nobody should pass from the school anymore. But I was living there. My place was there. I had to pass by or take a longer route to avoid it. After this session, the child recovered. He didn't have a fever again, didn't have seizures, and was able to continue at school while these events were happening. The child's brother was not at home. They had left him with his grandmother. Maybe some of you will be curious about this detail. After that, in that village, I also experienced paranormal events. Those teachers came again to solve the problem at school. Subscribe to our channel, like the video, and don't forget to comment. Thank you in advance. Stay healthy. We have come to the end of our story. Until we meet again in the next story, goodbye.